Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. We may have some students popping in as we're starting with this opening meditation. So, feel free to just keep yourself on mute for now, and know that there could be sounds of life happening around us as we're navigating this first opening meditation especially. So I'll invite you now to settle into your seat, whether that's on the floor or in a chair, just finding a space that you could relax into. Once you settle into your body, I'll invite you now to close your eyes if that's comfortable for you, or just simply take your gaze out and just resting the gaze down. And welcome, just settling into an opening meditation here. So finding a comfortable seat, settling into your body just as it is. Settling into your breath just as it is. And just taking a moment to recognize how things are inside right now. So you might get really interested in what parts of your body are touching the floor or chair, starting from your feet, just really feeling into the sensation of your feet inside your shoes or slippers. Noticing how perhaps your ankles and sit bones are resting or touching the floor or the chair. Noticing your hands resting on your legs. And noticing all of the aliveness that is right here in the hands. You might be noticing a vibrational quality, warmth, or a heaviness of the hands resting on the legs. And notice how you could just rest your attention into these parts of the body that we've named. And perhaps even using the feet on the floor or the hands on your legs as an anchor right now. Notice what it feels like to stay inside the body with full attention and care. Maybe noticing the sounds of the dogs barking, the sound of life happening. See if you could work with that too. So the invitation is not to push anything away, but notice how that sound starts possibly irritating the system. Notice how it's landing. And now I'm going to mute myself, and I want you to notice the difference in how the quiet subsides any agitation you noticed. And notice what's here right now, how things are inside. See if there's any lingering agitation or irritation or vibrational qualities to that experience. Cultivating this willingness to include even that. It's kind of riding the wave of feeling tones. Using your anchor in the breath or the body to really feel into how the feeling tones change and how emotions move. Now, attending to the exhale, try to drop or direct all of your attention into the out breath for just a few moments and encourage your body to relax with the exhale. See if you could just relax in and down. You might notice the breath deepen just a little, allowing some space for that. Just really tracking your experience. Just a few more concentrated breaths here. And now, relaxing the method, taking a moment in this emptiness. And when you're ready, you could simply draw the gaze down, perhaps hang your head down, opening your eyes when you're ready, inviting the light to pour back in, animating this space, and coming into this virtual space together. It's good to see all of you. Thank you for joining today. I'd like to pause for a moment because certainly that wasn't the plan. The dog's barking at a deer or something out the window. And I want to see how that all landed for you, because I think it's a really good exercise. It's not ideal to have sounds like that come in to the view when we're in practice. However, that's life, right? It's not desirable to certainly be in the midst of a pandemic, but here we are. So I'm just curious to see if anyone had anything to share about anything that they noticed as I was kind of guiding you through, how anything you felt that you got curious about. Anything you want to share really would, I think, be helpful to everyone.
I thought it was just a great opportunity to work with the immediate response that my mind and my breath gave. It was perfect, and I love how you handled it. And to me, that feels like real life. Like, this is why we meditate.
Yeah.
I teach here in Basel, and the studio is on the 4th floor in the biggest, busiest city square. And so every time we do a meditation in class, there are trams clanging, people talking, usually a really loud saxophone from a busker playing a bad 80s ballad. And I love it because it feels like this is a reminder why we meditate, to find the stillness in the midst of life happening. And I think you said that once. You said, when you do get distracted, just think to yourself, life is happening. And it's just such a powerful reminder.
Yeah.
So thanks.
Awesome. Thank you for that message. That's so important, right? Yes. And I think that we come into experiences like this, and we're a mindfulness training company, so obviously there was going to be a huge emphasis on mindfulness meditation as a formal practice, as informal practices, everything we're including. And I think the idea that most people come in with, especially if you're new to these concepts and ideas and methods, is that things are supposed to be rainbows and butterflies and quiet. And we think of people meditating in like these beautiful meadows and on, a hillside and in a stream. And yet here we are in this, modern world, having this really human experience. And none of us are monks or nuns or, anything like that. And we're just working with what we've got. And that also includes a lot of stress and a lot of noise and many difficulties, but also beauty and joy and ecstasy and love. And here we are. And so it's really what has kept me in this practice, steeped in this practice, and will continue to keep me steeped in this practice, is I'm really curious about just the reality of things and how things feel and land and move, and things that get really sticky inside, and also how sometimes I could feel so open and I could really be in the wonder of life. And of course, those moments also don't last. And so I practice because I want to build the capacity to be with the difficulties. But what I really, really, really want is I don't want to miss out on the beauty. And I feel like if we're not training up for that, it's so fleeting. And those opportunities move so quickly. So how can I be present for that too? So it's kind of a good segue. I didn't plan any of that, but it was really a good segue into our talk today on ritual, and how important that has become to me personally, and how I try to really emphasize the idea of ritual to students, and to not only students, but to my kids, to my mom, you know, even with my pets, which they don't understand, of course, what I'm trying to do with them, but just creating ritual in my life really enhances the experience of living. And I hope that it will also at some point give me the courage to also experience the art and beauty of dying. So, you know, that's the practice. That's the practice. You know, how can I embrace that too? So I wanted to ask you first before we dip in, do you think that habits are separate or the same as ritual? So I'm just curious what you think about that. Are habits the same as ritual, or are they different? So any thoughts? Trying to get your voices out there a little bit. So here's the difference from my view, and hopefully this helps. Ritual is intentional and is steeped in awareness. Habits are typically, you know, deep pattern behaviors that could come from very young parts of our lives, or parts of our lives where we got stuck and we still have lingering kind of habits from. So, and they're not always certainly bad, right? Now, can a habit become a ritual? Thoughts on that? Yeah. Yeah, totally. Right. So that's what we're trying to cultivate in these sessions is habit. We're trying to cultivate a habit, and then we're trying to transform it into ritual. So ritual, and I'm going to use this word, but I hope it doesn't bring up dogma for anyone. Ritual becomes sacred. And this, that sacred quality doesn't have to have dogma on it. It's just, it adds a special layer in that is captivating and heartfelt and embodied. So rituals as an experience have to be trained up, just like we have to train up our practices. But the essence of it requires that full presence. So it works really beautifully doing and talking about here. And it in and of itself can become, I think did you guys lose me? Are you there? Okay, good. Can become a practice. So I wanted to read a quote to you guys from Joseph Campbell. A ritual is the enactment of a myth, and by participating in the ritual, you are participating in the myth. And since myth is a projection of the depth of wisdom of the psyche, by participating in a ritual, participating in the myth, you are being, as it were, put in accord with that wisdom. So he's talking about that intrinsic primordial within you anyhow. Your consciousness is being reminded of the wisdom of your life. And he ends it by saying, I think ritual is terribly important, terribly important. And I would have to agree. So ritual, by bringing full presence, full intention to that process and treating it with incredible care and protecting it, protecting the spaces of ritual, protecting the time blocks around ritual that you've set aside, just enhances that experience. Okay. And it reminds us the wisdom was already inside. So I keep reminding each of you of that because it's so important. Nothing that and I don't know if you're having this experience, but nothing that I'm teaching you is anything you actually need to be taught. It's simply me bringing it up into the awareness, and pushing it out on this vibration or frequency where you're reminded that, oh, I feel like I already knew this, or somebody must have told me this before, because it resonates so deeply. And you could trust that that's this inner wisdom, this inner essence that was already there. In other words, we were born with it. And that's why every world religion, every indigenous culture on the planet have such beautiful, important rituals. And I want to just name here that tomorrow, in tomorrow's talk with Rachel, she'll be folding in some discussion on Native American rituals and indigenous rituals, and how those rituals are very supportive from her guest tomorrow. So it will be especially important for you to tap into that and be reminded of our talk today. So rituals are mindful acts requiring full presence, and they often include repeated sequences. So that's important. So in other words, when I say a repeated sequence, you may have rituals already that you're being reminded of around major holidays that you celebrate. So you may have a ritual with the Thanksgiving holiday, which is, if you're an American, you most likely celebrate. And what is that ritual? What makes it special? Maybe you're bringing out the good china, or the turkey saucer, or something like that, that makes it reminds you of why this day is important. A good example of this is my husband and I, we got this really funny gift for our wedding when we got married. And it's a, what is it called? Where you pour the wine into the carafe, and what's it called? I forget what it's called. Anyway, it's shaped like, yeah, it's shaped like a duck decanter. That's what it is, a decanter. And it's very ugly. And when we opened it, we had no idea what it was or why somebody would pick it out. And as it turns out, it was like very expensive. So it was like this really obnoxious, kind of ridiculous gift. But every year on our anniversary, we pull it out with a beautiful bottle of wine, and we celebrate our anniversary. And it's become a ritual, and this very awkward gift has become something that's very sacred. So that would be considered a ritual, something that's repeated. Now, from a daily practice perspective, I would bet that there's already habits that are, if they aren't already moving into that space of ritual, have enormous potential to very easily slide into the description of being a ritual. So you could think of, Bjarne's waving his hand. Go ahead, Bjarne.
Yeah, I just want to share something. My mother had passed away a few years ago, and I live in the house that she lived in, and she always used to cook with a cast iron skillet, which is very hard to clean. And I don't have her old skillet, but recently we bought another skillet. And at first, in the rush of life, I found myself just rushing to clean, just get the dishes done. And now that we're home all the time, we're cooking all the time. But lately, that cast iron has just become a ritual where, I can remember her love, and I can remember the love that I'm putting in the food, and, the intention of that, just cleaning it has now just become a daily ritual, which, I'm kind of falling in love with, even though it's kind of dirty work, but it's really beautiful, kind of remembering my mother and the love in the food, and what was a menial task, that I caught myself going, what am I rushing for? What is the rush to get through to the next task? So it's really been a great reminder to slow down and just be thankful for what you have.
Yes. Yeah, that's absolutely what I'm talking about. And this opportunity that we have, and something you said, Bjarni, was so key in that. Because things have slowed down, I noticed, right? And so what we're all experiencing is this giant pause. I read an article and it said, it calls it the great pause. And I loved that, because never in our lives have we been fortunate enough to have everything stop for enough time that we can actually pay attention to things like this in our lives. These very potent, beautiful blessings that are right there. Because I guarantee, and this may not have happened for you for this circumstance in particular, but when we are moving so quickly, we just simply don't make the time to stop and pay attention. So you could hear my my animals banging on the door, so I'm going to let them in very quickly, and I'll explain why I chose this crazy area of my house to sit in. Okay, so here they are. So this is my kitchen. This is part of my kitchen, and this little nook area is really special to me, because every morning when I wake up, I try to get up very early. I normally don't struggle with that. I'm normally one of those super annoying morning people that pop out of bed and I'm ready to tackle the day. But with everything that's been happening, my schedule's been really disrupted. So I've been really intentional about getting back to my normal routine this week, and have been setting my alarm and just getting things back to normal, because it's so essential to me emotionally and mentally and even physically. So impactful for me to really pay attention to parts of my day that are very nurturing. And for me, the morning always has been, and partly because of this little space that I have, which is where I sit and have my morning coffee. And I sit in this little nook, and I'm surrounded by things that I love. And that is also part of this. So making your rituals beautiful is very meaningful to the experience. And Bjarni, you illustrated that really beautifully, because this, anything could be of beauty. It doesn't just have to be this cozy little nook of a space with plants and art. Just that cast iron skillet is full of beauty because of your memories and love, right? So anything could be more beautiful. And you'd probably be surprised at some of the things in my home that are so beautiful to me, not because they're physically appealing or aesthetically appealing, but because they hold preciousness from memories from people I love, from a time in my life that was meaningful or special, just like we talked about with the ugly duck decanter, right? However, I do believe that having little corners of your home and adding beauty to that ritual of time enhances the experience significantly. So nothing drives me more crazy than when this space gets really messy, which, by the way, it's often messy because, of course, everyone kind of gathers here. So the kids do homework here. We eat in this area, our meals. The dogs are always laying around my feet, so there's always dog hair around. But even the act of tidying up the area has become sacred, because I recognize that this space is full of ritual and memories and potential. and that it's really important for not just me, but everybody in the home to come to this space as a refuge. So these rituals can unfold in a lot of different ways and become very meaningful to everyone around you. But it's up to you. The rituals are a personal experience. That personal experience, of course, can be shared and often is. So I wanted to just repeat that rituals are often repeated sequences full of intention, awareness, and focused energy, which is what we just talked about, right? So when we're in that space, it's requiring a little bit of extra energy in order to make it so. So there's some tips I have, and then we're going to talk about specific rituals that, or specific times of day that are quite easy to layer ritual in, or layer these practices in so that they cultivate into ritual. So the first tip is, and we did this on Tuesday, so I wanted to keep it at the top of the list, is finding your truest intention. So remember, intention setting and cultivating intention in its truest, most authentic form is in and of itself a practice. And that practice can inform this other practice of creating and maintaining and ritual. So your aspiration is what grows out of that intention setting. Your motivation is what will keep you coming back. And so it's very all rooted in intention and listening to the body and tapping into this deep space of the hara. The hara, remember that belly space below the navel. Number two, the second tip we already talked about, but slowing down in every way, slowing down. So what else can you slow down? Michelle and I earlier were talking about sound, and she was, we were talking about sound therapy, which is something Michelle Smith, by the way, which is one of our Studio B teachers. We were talking about sound therapy and how important that is, and how to provide some key materials for our students. And I said, when you teach this, I said, I think it's really, really important to talk about noise and the difference between sound and noise, and how we don't often notice how much noise we're keeping around us, and how important and essential that is for not only slowing things down, but for deep healing. Okay, so noise in our lives, what do I mean by that? I mean, how often do you get into your car and turn on the radio? How often do you get home from work and turn on the TV, and maybe the radio's playing in the kitchen, and maybe the computer's out on the table? All right, so where is the noise in your life, and how can you begin to because I believe it's addictive. I really believe that noise is addictive, that we're not comfortable in quiet and silence, and it's something that we have to work with in a special way. But it contributes significantly to this intention or tip of just slowing things down. Because here we are in our homes for a long time. I just read that it looks like we're going to be in quarantine until May 15th. We have a few more weeks to work with this. So how can you begin to start toggling it down just a little bit? This doesn't mean that you're never supposed to watch TV again. This doesn't mean that you're not supposed to listen to beautiful music. That's not what I'm talking about. When you listen to music, listen to it with your full attention, or dance with your kids, right? Or my husband always turns on the slow jazz channel when he's cooking, and we always make fun of him because, we're like, better than the slow jazz channel on Pandora. But it wouldn't feel the same in our house if he was cooking with something else. So it has become his ritual in that it sets a tone for all of us in the home. And children especially are really affected by this noise. So we start noticing in our bodies, and you had an example of that in your practice today, what noise felt like, because those aren't your dogs that you love, right? So you're not experiencing that sound in the same way that I am, right? And so when they went out and I quieted things down, I'm hoping that you had an experience of still feeling that noise inside, and if you noticed it leaving. So there's an opportunity for that and to work with it. And then once we start sensitizing ourselves to what it feels like, what life could be like without the extra noise, things slow down even more. And when things slow down, we're able to pay closer attention, and that presence is a necessary ingredient for these rituals to happen. Number 3, making time for your practices, treating your time for your practices as sacred. I'm working with a student, and she has 3 kids, and they're, obviously we're all in the same situation, and we've been beginner meditation. And what I always tell students in the beginning is try your formal practice in different pockets of the day and see if you could find a pocket of time that feels most supportive, and then just like guard it with your life, right? But I do leave it up to each of you to figure out when that is, because we're all so different. We have different constitutions and much different personalities, and our bodies have energy cycles that are different. So it is really important. But what I'm always looking for, especially when I'm working with somebody privately, is them coming to me and saying, I found it, I committed to this time, and it's made a huge difference. Because without a doubt, that's always the feedback that I'm receiving. So once you figure it out, and it doesn't mean that that's not going to change, because it certainly will, and there will be moments in time where you certainly get your schedule, your rituals certainly get derailed, much of like what we were just talking about a few minutes ago when I told you that my morning routine was off and it was affecting me. Okay, so remember, in these practices, we're never striving for perfection. That's not real. It doesn't exist. And anyone that tells you that it is or they are is lying. Okay, so I just want to emphasize that. But what my student said is I've committed to this morning practice. I'm making space for myself in the day. I'm prioritizing this time as sacred, and it has made a huge impact. Okay, so making time for your practice. The next tip I have is treat yourself as your special guest. Okay, so treat yourself as your special guest. So we all know what it's like to have company come over, especially somebody that's come over for the first time, how we welcome them into the home. Perhaps, for me, especially, like, I vacuum everything because I'm really paranoid there's going to be dog hair around. I love to get fresh flowers. I pull out the beautiful flowered napkins, the fabric napkins. We set the table. And I was thinking about this, and how often do we do that for ourselves? Last week, in the middle of the week, I set the table up beautifully just for me, Ed, and the kids. I put, I have an aloe plant I put in the middle of the table, just kind of treated my family, my husband, myself as the special guest. And it was so sweet and lovely. And the girls got so into it, and they were so excited about it that they've decided this week to cook a special dinner for Ed and I for tomorrow night so that we could have a date night at home. And that was just something that came out of that just special, that intention of treating my family, all of us, as special as we treat our special guests. The other thing I want to say here, and I'm just reminded of it now talking to each of you, is my grandmother, when she was living, we always bought her, she loved lotions and, you know, beautiful soaps and things like that. But I'd go over to her house and all of those lotions and perfumes and soaps would be stacked up on the shelf in her bathroom, not even opened. And, you know, I always had to encourage her to open up the special soap, you know, open up the special lotion and use it. So treating yourself to those special things right now, I think, is very helpful. And of course, that experience could spill over into a beautiful ritual. Okay. The next one. Well, the next point was make the ordinary extraordinary. And so those two kind of really fit together. So treating yourself as the special guest and making ordinary moments extraordinary. And we could think of all kinds of different opportunities in which to do that. So I think the illustration I provided with the dinner was a good one. Number 6, smile as much as possible. So how can you, open up? So physically smiling, shifting your mouth to the corners of your mouth turned up, provides it shifts our brains. It shifts us neurologically, chemically, and emotionally into a more positive state of being, a state of mind. So when we're thinking about these rituals, we're not supposed to find them in every pocket of the day. We're supposed to look for these ordinary moments that we could come to again and again that feel supportive and make life really beautiful. So just smiling, connecting, listening, they all fall under this tip. Number 7, prioritize connection. So something that has become really important to me and has become a ritual during this crisis, during this time, is my whole family lives far away. So my mom and my sister, my nephews and niece and brother-in-law, whom I'm really close to, they're all in Florida. And my brother and his wife, who are expecting a baby in just a couple weeks, are in Southern California. And my second oldest child, my son Joshua, is also in Florida right now because he got stuck down there with a project that he's doing. So every night after we eat dinner, we FaceTime my sister and my mom, because my mom is with my sister in the quarantine. And we talk and laugh and make fun of each other and, and cry. And every night we talk, and it has added such a deep layer of comfort to this experience, and such an important connection. And one, quite frankly, that isn't always easy, because of course those closest relationships come with all kinds of baggage sometimes. But just so important. And it's refreshed the intention of making those relationships full. So I would absolutely encourage each of you to stay connected to the people in your life that you love, that are so important to you. And, just this ritual, this time together, this 2 p.m. hour, Monday through Friday, it really has become a ritual for me. It's something I look forward to. It's something that has really anchored my days. It's something that makes me feel not only connected to each of you, but to the work, to the purpose of the work, to the mission of the work, and to this deep intention of service. So just finding your opportunities for connection are really essential, not just now, but as we migrate out of this time. And lastly, practicing self-compassion. So I wanted to anchor the talk there because it's easy to sit here with an outline that I prepared and talk about all the rituals in my life. It really is. And in reality, it's not that easy to practice these ideas. So if any of what I just said made you feel uncomfortable, or any thoughts of not enough, or I can't do that, or anything that came up, any kind of self-criticism, or any parts of you that felt agitated by my suggestions, I just want you to know that all of those things are really normal, and I'm certainly not perfect in any way, shape, or form. So these are just things that I've learned have helped me immensely in living a better quality of life. So just practicing, just naming that, just practicing self-compassion, understanding that the practices of compassion, of self-compassion especially, of being kind to oneself, are not easy, sometimes feel incredibly awkward and not authentic. And so what I could say from experience, from personal experience, is that the more and more I come to the practices, the more I work with them, both the compassion practices and the metta practices, the more they become a part of me and the less awkward they feel. So trust that for sure. And I was going to end our class today with a compassion practice. But before we do that, I wanted to open this talk up for questions so that when we come to the end of the practice, you could leave here feeling really full. Okay, so just wanted to take the next couple minutes to see what questions or suggestions or insights you have from my talk today, from our talk today. Okay. All right.
I'll mention briefly, I really like that you emphasize slowing down and how revelatory that can be. And like with Bjarne's example, it's spot on. And it's interesting how we have celebrated multitasking for so long. And I feel like now finally our culture is making this full circle return to saying time out, monotasking is where it's at. That when we just scrub the cast iron skillet, I mean, we're coming back to that ultimately super Zen practice of just being right where we are. And so if you're just in the kitchen stirring the rice, you're meditating. And I think especially when we start meditating, we think, oh God, I have to go sit on that cushion for 20 minutes and never blow it. And it's like, no, we can just do it in those 10 seconds that you're standing at the stove and come back to center as you come back to the rice that you're stirring. So that struck me as a gift of this time, this really unexpected time for a lot of us to be in our homes, especially, recognizing how privileged we are to be safely in homes with enough food and electricity and all of that, but to see the benefit of that great slowdown.
Thanks for mentioning that, Rach. So important. All right. Well, we're going to drop right into a practice. So if any other questions come up, you could either post them in the chat, or you can post them on the community board in the portal. And I am checking that every day and answering questions. So I'd love to see more of us in there because I think it would be helpful for everyone. So feel free to just post a question there from anything that we're covering in these sessions. Okay, so just to give you, before we drop into the practice, I just wanted to give you a short explanation of this process. So we're doing a self-compassion practice that is rooted or structured similar to a metta practice. And metta, of course, is the Pali word for loving kindness. You may also hear the word maitri, and that is the Sanskrit word for loving kindness, but both mean the same thing. And loving kindness practices are wishes that we're sending out, or making friends with other and the world and self through these wishes that we're extending out to specific people in a certain way. Compassion practices begin with sending these well wishes or and yearnings, and then what turns into deep connections emotionally to oneself. And we start with self-compassion, but it's also the hardest place to start often. So what I love about this structure is it provides an opportunity to experience these phrases coming in from a beloved, and we extend them out to the beloved, and then we extend them to self. Okay. And it's often an easier way in. And when I ask you to pick a beloved being, so a very loved person in your life, but it could also be someone from beyond, so someone that's already passed. And it could also be a dog or a cat, a special pet. It could be a child, a baby, someone that is very easy to love. So someone that doesn't have a lot of emotional triggers or baggage in that relationship. So often people choose a child or a dog or even a tree. Like if you have a favorite tree on your property, you could imagine wishing these blessings onto the tree. When we do it this way, framed in the metta kind of experience, it's a little disarming. So there's a better, in my experience at least, it's a better opportunity to start working with this as a practice. Okay, so any questions before we get started? Okay, so find a comfortable seat. You, if that feels, practice is just to place one or both hands on your chest over your heart. So that's up to you. Just taking a moment to settle in. Just noticing the rise and fall of the chest. Noticing your heartbeat perhaps. And just taking a moment now that is easy to love. And you may experience many. So try to just settle on one for now, just one. And calling this being to your mind's eye, bringing them into clear view. And then imagining this being right in front of you, smiling back at you. And notice all of the love that is right here between the two of you. And notice what this feels like in the space of the heart. And now smiling towards this inner smile towards this being of light. We'll repeat these phrases. So I'll say the phrase out loud, and then you could silently repeat the phrase in your mind's eye. May you feel and experience kindness. So we're directing this wish out to that being that's so important in our lives. May you feel and experience forgiveness. Just breathing into that. May you feel and experience compassion. May you feel and experience love. Now just feeling into the experience, notice your body. And looking gently upon this being of life, this beloved being in front of you. Imagining them turning towards you and saying these phrases. So just taking them in. May you feel and experience kindness. May you feel and experience forgiveness. May you feel and experience compassion. May you feel and experience love. And just noticing how those phrases landed and trusting that this being that you love so much truly wished those blessings for you. And now, repeating these blessings towards yourself. May I feel and experience kindness. May I feel and experience forgiveness. May I feel and experience compassion. May I feel and experience love. And just really feeling into the body, the heart center, and noticing how these phrases landed. And if your hands are on your heart center, you could release them down. And when you're ready, you could open your eyes. Thank you so much for being with me today in this talk. I really enjoyed it, and I hope that you did too. I'm going to stay on for just a few minutes in case there's any questions from the practice, but you are welcome to go ahead and log off and enjoy that vibrational quality of those wishes. We're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Rachel will be leading the class and bringing in 2 special guests. And Rachel, can you repeat their names
Sure.
for the group?
Lynn Taylor Corbett is a Tony-nominated Broadway director and choreographer. She danced with the Alvin Ailey Dance Company back in the day and has directed shows like Swing and choreographed the Broadway version of Titanic, the movie Footloose. And her son, Sean, was in the original cast of In the Heights on Broadway with Lin-Manuel Miranda and has toured nationally in Jersey Boys, right? I don't know where I got Jersey Girl, sorry. And it's just wonderful. And they have written a new musical called Distant Thunder that is the first Native American musical. And it is currently supposed to be playing in Oklahoma and has been postponed because of coronavirus until September. So we're going to have a wonderful chat with them about the arts and what it's like to be in the theater world right now in a time when we don't even know when any theater will reopen, and how Indigenous and Native communities are especially affected by this pandemic. So we're so excited. We should have a great crew of folks to really dive into these topics. So I hope you can join us.
I'm so excited. I can't wait. All right, guys.
Thanks, Jen.
You so much. That's all we've got for you today. And we will see you tomorrow at 2. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Bye.